Christian Brodin is the president of Lexington Asset Management, a national real estate management company that manages a portfolio of 2,600 apartments spread over 6 U.S. states. Christian is also a former Navy lieutenant, founder of 3 businesses, and currently a successful real estate executive. For 14 years, he has mentored aspiring leaders and helped build successful businesses. Most recently, he has helped build a real estate company from 300 apartments to over 2,500 apartments. He is dedicated to giving back and mentoring others to reach their fullest potential. So Christian, you have obviously had great success being an entrepreneur. You've helped build Lexington Asset Management into a $20 million business with the help of online freelancers. I think everyone here wants to know how. So to start things off, I'd love for you to share with us, when did you first start using online freelancers and what inspired this?
Well, I started back in 2011, and what inspired me was basically Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek. And the light that kind of came on for me was that I was spending too much time in the nitty-gritty or in the weeds, and I wasn't spending enough time on the things that really would help our business grow. And to get out of the details, I needed help. I mean, we have a great team of people already, but we needed specific help with specific projects. And using freelancers to do some of that could actually free up my time to work on some of the things that will actually build our business, like sales, investor conversation, client conversations, traveling around, doing analysis for new projects. So yeah, that's how it got started.
Awesome. So do you have a freelancer onboarding process? And how do you ensure that they'll be a good fit for the company?
That's a very good question, and it was kind of learned the hard way. I hired a lot of freelancers, and I didn't really think about how to hire them. I mean, we have a hiring process when we bring on, kind of physical people into our company, but there was no kind of path for how to bring on freelancers. And I came up through learning by all my mistakes, like a list of questions that I will ask. It kind of goes through a certain process to, first of all, clarify what it is that I need to achieve. And I think that's a big problem. I don't think people really think about what they actually want out of hiring somebody. You need to be very clear about that. And if you're very clear about that, you can communicate very clearly with the freelancers too, so that they also understand what you're trying to create. So made a lot of mistakes, put out a lot of projects, got very bad results back. And that was not on the freelancers. It was basically my mistake. And I learned from that and kind of put a system in place to help me go through and make sure that I'm clear about my project. I know what I want to achieve. I try to learn a little bit about what we're trying to create. I mean, if you want to build your website, do you know about Joomla versus WordPress? We ended up with a solution that probably isn't as adaptable to new technology because I didn't know enough about it. So I needed to learn a little bit about what we were creating. And then once you do that, then I have a process for going through the freelancers. I have a job description that I use. I have, things that I look for when I hire freelancers. How much work have they done? What kind of reviews do they get? And, what does their portfolio look like? And then kind of read it down. And then, when you get to the end, you just have to make a pick and maybe give them like 1 or 2 easy projects to try out and see how they do on that.
So you use freelancers from all over the world, right?
Yes, I have people in Pakistan, I have people in India, I have people in Macedonia, I have people in Australia, I have a lot of people here in the US too that I use. And it just depends on the project. One thing that I did learn is that when you work with people from all over the world is that there's definitely cultural barriers, and you can't really expect that somebody who lives in a different culture easily understands what you're trying to achieve. If you're doing a project here in the US, it might be a different culture than what is in India. But as long as you're cognizant about that, I think that you can get excellent product from anywhere in the world.
Great. And do you use like a video conferencing to do the initial interview, or what do you?
It depends on the project. I use a lot of different sites. I typically for Elance, I will do an interview because Elance tends to be more high level, much more money kind of projects. So for Elance, I would.
Great. And you actually have a freelancer here today that you've been working with
yeah,
online.
Melissa, she's my assistant, and she's more than that. I really don't want to put you in like a, box and say that you're an assistant. She's an extremely talented individual. And to be honest, this is part of what I like about freelancing. Melissa, like a lot of millennials, I think, they want to work for companies that give them something more than just coming in and, clocking in and out. And to get to that point where you find the company that you want to work for, you need a little bit of time. And you need also experience to kind of get to that level. And, a site like Elance is an excellent opportunity for millennials or people that want to do that, because you can gain experience. I think there's a lower barrier to being hired, and you can actually work with people. And if you deliver great product, they will review you and give you great feedback, and then kind of builds your self-confidence and kind of pushes you forward, and it pays you. So I think it's a great solution.
Yeah. I just think it's great that you guys have been working together online for months, and you're now meeting in person for the first time.
Yeah, that's how it is, right?
Yeah. So tell us, how many freelancers have you managed at one time, and how did you actually find them?
I think the biggest group that we're using is a company out of India for our IT support and customer service. So maybe 8 to 10 people at the same time. And we actually sat down and we worked with them to help build our customer service structure, actually, where they will call people and ask, we have a forum, they will ask some questions, like how are we doing on our customer service, what could we do better to help serve our clients. And then also, they are helping us with, building a website and managing all of our IT services.
Was it a challenge getting them onboarded initially, making them feel like they're part of the team, even though they're different continents?
Yeah, I think, they're extremely talented, like on the technical aspect, but I don't think that they had ever worked with a big organization like ours, like before. And we really had to sit down and map out what we needed and what they could provide. And it took a lot of time, a lot of talks on Skype to really get to a point where we felt that it's a perfect integration between us. So yeah, it did take a lot of time.
And why did you choose to go the freelancer route over the traditional hiring them on as employees?
Well, I think it's as a business owner, we always try to keep costs down. But I also think that you need specific skills, and the specific skills aren't necessarily available to you just like in your local market. So you need to kind of step out of your local market, and I think that the internet has kind of been the facilitator of that. So that when you need specific help, you can look online, you can use a service like Elance, and you can find people more easily than if you were to actually put a job post in and then hire somebody full time. So it's a combination of cost and also finding the right talent.
Great. What tools or system do you use to manage the freelancers in the remote locations, and how do you manage results?
Well, to me, result management is always about follow-up. I think the biggest mistake that business owners and leaders do is that they delegate things, thinking that things will take care of themselves. But if you really want to manage your results, you have to be extremely clear about what you're doing and what you want to achieve, and then you need to set very clear milestones for delivery of work. And I think if you can stay on top of that, you can get excellent results. That's basic project management is what I would say.
What are the biggest lessons that you've learned from the years of experience with working with online freelancers? I'm sure are there pitfalls that we can try to prevent?
Absolutely. I think the biggest one is spending money on projects that doesn't take you anywhere. Basically thinking that you want to outsource a task or some simple work, and you kind of hand it off thinking that it will take care of itself. It won't. You need to be crystal clear about what you want to achieve, what your goal is, and then communicate that in a way that is so specific that the other person really understands it. Because if you don't, you'll end up with a very poor product and you'll waste your money. And I think especially for startups, where cash is kind of strapped, you basically want to make sure that every dollar, counts in what you're doing. So, you really need to be on top of what you want.
So what advice and resources would you recommend to people who would like to start working with online freelancers?
First of all, be very clear about what you want to achieve. Really, what is it that you need it for? Don't go and waste your money. But if you have, if you're going to design a new logo, if you have an IT project that you need help with, really sit down and think about what is it that I want to achieve with this project. And once you get clear with that, write the job description, let it sit on your desk, let it sit on your computer for a day, and really think about, is this going to accomplish what I want to do? And once you've done that, there are tons of sites. I mean, you have Fiverr, you have Elance, you have Craigslist. I mean, there's no end to all the sources where you can get online freelancers. But you pick one that you're comfortable with. Pick one where you know that your work will get done, where you know that the transaction will be completed. And I heard somebody here talking about a non-disclosure agreement or an NDA. Use a site where you know that if you put in place an agreement that it will actually be honored. Yeah,
so I can't imagine on Craigslist being able to find reliable talent or...
Well, everybody's different, but I think professional project management comes down to the systems, clarity in systems, and anything that allows you to have a really good system in place will, of course, benefit you in getting better results.
I've actually had people ask me about Craigslist, and it's a funny question because, with Elance, we give so many assurances, right? You pay for results. Yeah. We have instant access to talent all over the world that's rated, right? They take tests to prove that they know what they know. We have the tools so they can do video conferencing, file sharing, versioning control. So it kind of baffles me that people, especially because for clients, you can join for free, you post jobs for free. So I know that you are very techy and you use all kinds of resources. So in some instances, like with Fiverr, right, those are great for what kind of projects do you use that for, and when do you decide, what platform to use?
Well, so I'm coming out with my new book, basically how to use freelancers as a business. And, for $5, I got a book cover. I mean, it's incredible. But, it's kind of, I would say, it's, for me, definitely, and I want to iterate it, I think Elance definitely delivers the most professional platform. But for any kind of small things, on Fiverr, where it can be hit and miss, but if you find somebody good, you want to stick with them. But for $5, who can beat that? I mean, if you're a startup and you need a new logo, go for it.
So let's talk about the scalability of freelancers with relation to employees in a startup environment. At what point in a startup's growth does the utilization of freelancers become optimal?
I would say at every step as an entrepreneur. And really it comes down to, your resources are limited. You probably don't have any other investors than your friends and family or yourself. So how do you utilize that amount of money at the best, how do you get the most bang for your buck? So I would say, from day one, you can start using freelancers, and, even if it's a logo, a website, helping you with your social media presence. If you need to write an article, if you're in a hurry, you can use it for anything. But then, of course, you probably want to have some kind of physical presence after a while too. And I would say that, that's probably where you start hiring more people just around you. But even at that point, for projects, specific projects, you can use freelancers, all the time. So, and I know, even big corporations actually use, I know Facebook, Google, all these big corporations actually use a lot of freelancers. So, I mean, there's no kind of limit to, when or how, or it's just, what kind of projects do you want to complete?
What was the biggest challenge you faced in growing such a successful business?
Hiring the right people. Without a doubt. I mean, it's the biggest resource. I mean, without the team, your business is virtually nothing. The longer you're in the business, of course, you learn how to find people, you get your hiring processes set, and you start to understand, that you need to hire people that have the similar values as you, not necessarily interests, but definitely hiring the right people.
So I can imagine the flexibility of using platforms like Elance, where you find a good freelancer that you really like, they finish a project, and then maybe 3 months down the line, you need them again, you can go back to them. I mean...
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a couple of friends that, I have one friend who runs, this very successful fashion blog. I think they have like 2 million followers on Facebook. And, he basically built his business, just with freelancers. So, yeah.
What are you doing to ensure that your business can continue to grow and stay successful?
Getting out of the details and focusing on the big stuff. It's very simple. I see a lot of people becoming slaves in their own business because they want to do everything themselves. They don't want to spend the money on projects. They don't want to spend time and resources on what will really grow their business. And I think that's the number one trap. And you really need to, take a leap of faith and delegate some of the responsibilities to other people. Do what you're passionate about, because it will fuel you every day. Don't get in behind your desk or behind, wherever you work and feel unhappy or, overstretched. Really make the changes that will allow you to live a free life and break free and do what you're originally passionate about. Because if you do that, I think that you kind of live into your own role. And when people really see that you have the kind of energy and motivation and success, you kind of ooze of self-confidence, and people really want to do more business with you. Success breeds success, and if you kind of project that, I think that you can grow into the skies, literally.
Great advice. Thank you. Let's talk about your blog, The Maverick CEO. And apparently you have an offer for everyone here today.
Yeah, so I got an opportunity very young in life to take over this company. And I was really lucky. I had a lot of mentors. I had a lot of people that really believed in me. And to give back and help others, I have my blog. I call it The Maverick CEO. And it's about inspiring and providing insights to the next generation of leaders. And I want to give back, some of the advice that I got, and I want to share also some of the mistakes that I made, so that other people, can learn from that and don't necessarily have to do them yourself. So you get faster to your goal. Yeah, anybody who visits my blog and signs up for my newsletter, we're giving away my free book, how to use freelancers successfully and manage, successful projects online. It's for today only. So if you go there and sign up for my newsletter, you will be getting the book. You'll also get another e-guide that I have there. And, hopefully, if people are seeking answers and inspirations, they will find that going through there.
That's great. And you do a podcast too.
I do. Like I said, I think in this day and age, you need to be on all sorts of platforms. You need to be, audio, video, text. And we like to invite people to come to our show. We'll invite entrepreneurs to speak, and they'll talk about some of their challenges. We had one she's actually the Enterprising Woman of the Year nominee. Her name is Amy Letke. And, she came on the show and she talked about some of the issues that she was facing, going from being bankrupt and unemployed, going back to live with your parents, having 2 children, and then, a couple of years later, now she has 17 employees. And she kind of talks you through her story and how she got there. And I think that's extremely powerful. And, it's all about sharing those kind of messages to encourage people to go out and live their life.
Absolutely. So last question before we open it up to Q&A. What would your advice be to the more traditionally minded business owner that the concept of using online freelancers, someone they can't see or touch, having this virtual relationship, it's kind of scary for some people at first. So what would your advice be to them?
that is completely safe. I haven't had any legal issues or anything like that so far. And again, it just allows you to break free from the small stuff and focus on the bigger stuff. And that's basically the main point, where people need to focus their attention. And I think even traditional businesses can benefit. And they can kind of do things that they probably couldn't have, because they don't have the resources, they don't have the money, or they don't have the know-how to do things. And they, by bringing in somebody from the outside, you can go out and create, waves in new industries or new businesses.
So everyone here today is getting $50 in Elance credit to try it out. What would you suggest they use the $50 for?
I would write down my to-do list, my 10 top things, and then I would circle the number one important thing, and I would see, is that something that I can outsource? If it is, then go on, get the job done, and free up your life.
Great. Thank you, Christian.
You're more than welcome.
So let's open it up to Q&A. Any questions? Yes?
Yeah, so you mentioned the importance of delegating and then mapping out milestones. I'm wondering if you can talk about the third leg, which is checking in on the status of those milestones, and whether you've seen any challenges in that step, and how do you get the most out of that time when you do check in with the freelancer?
That's a very good question, and when you manage the milestones, and it's very easy for a freelancer because they're not business owners, right? They're great at what they do, but they're not, so business-minded. So you really need to sit down with them before the project starts and talk about what you want to achieve. And then when you check in, you need to have a kind of a reality check, that things are actually moving forward. And if it isn't, you can't be afraid to say it. We are so terrified of telling people that things aren't moving forward, or the project is not what we wanted. Just blast through that wall. And if you do that, and you do it in an encouraging way, I think that you can create amazing results. I hope that answers your question.
And what's great too, like on Elance, once you start the relationship with the freelancer for a job, they too can give you their advice on how to go about setting those milestones. And that way you both come up with a plan that really makes sense for everybody. So.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things you just reminded me of. I think it's a function where both have to approve if there are any changes to the milestones. So it really allows you also more effectively hold people accountable and say that, you basically approve this. We need to get back on track too. So it's a kind of a dual approval system.
And for many projects where they might be even out of your comfort zone, right? So for a lot of business people that want to do tech projects, it's so great with our freelancer base because they can serve as a consultant almost as well. They can suggest things and help educate you on how to go about the project in ways that you may not know of.
Yeah, and Melissa is a great example of that, to get some feedback and people actually pointing out things that you might not necessarily see yourself. So that's a great point, yeah.
Any other questions? I know in the back. Yeah.
So I came in late, I apologize if you've already covered this, but I'm wondering how the role of your online reputation plays into this, and are there systems out there that are integrating, are people scored and ranked so that I know somebody might be better than another person? Is any of that kind of included in these sites today, or is that just in the future?
On Elance, it's a very good rating system, and you can see how many projects that people have actually completed, and they also get a rating, a number of stars, and then I think Elance has an algorithm to kind of combine the two and show them a ranking from 1 to 15. When you go in and look at the rating, make sure that you look at how much money have they gotten in, what are people actually saying, how many stars were they given, and I can't remember. Can you see, the adherence to time and budget, or is that just condensed in the stars?
Well, you can see what projects they've done, like the details of the job
Yeah.
that they did in the past.
Yeah, and that allows you, and I think it asks, questions, adherence to budget, was it, adherence to the goal, adherence to timeliness and things like that. So if you go in, you can use it as a very effective tool. And then I also encourage people to see if you can find out things outside too. Do people have a portfolio? Just Google them. I think most employers today Google, their new talent anyway. So I would do the same thing, like online. Did that answer your question? Or yeah.
And I'd like to add, so before I worked for Elance, I was a freelancer on Elance. And the fact that you can build an online reputation was one of the main reasons that led me to become a freelancer on Elance. Anyone can join, and as much time as you put into it is as much visibility as you'll get back. So you can take tests to prove that you know what you know, and then once you work with a client and get rated, that then increases your visibility more and more. I love the fact that because it's an online, so it's a global company, you have visibility to clients from all over the world. So my first client was in Uruguay, South America, and I probably would have never found him if it wasn't for Elance. So the online reputation component is huge for us. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you have any experience hiring or using online freelancers for something that's tends to be thought of as more physical, like sales?
Not in sales directly, but like I said, for our customer service, we have 2,000 plus 2,600 apartments, and somebody lives in the majority of them. And actually, we hired a team to call each and every one of them, and we combined that with SurveyMonkey, so that they would go through kind of what questions we wanted to ask them, and they would call in, and they would also follow up with people. I mean, is that kind of where you're going?
I'm thinking more in the B2B, and not user acquisition, but in some, in that respect.
Yeah, I haven't done, I only do, B2C, I guess you call it. Yeah.
But there is absolutely that category, sales and marketing, on Elance. So on our platform, it's any type of work that can be done on a computer, which nowadays, let's face it, it's pretty much everything. So there is definitely a sales and marketing category, and yeah, a lot of work in there. Thanks. Any other questions? Yes?
How long did it take you to get to that point? And then also, you mentioned that the more specific and the more clear you are as to the objective and what you're trying to accomplish, the better results and output you see. How do you identify, or how did you manage to identify very specific requests for something that you're not familiar with, like IT, for example, or hypothetically?
It took a couple of trial and errors. So I don't know if it's time or just a number of projects. So maybe it took, like 2-3 projects to get to, a point where I felt like, oh my gosh, I overspent, or, I wasted, like $500 or $1,000 on this, and I didn't really get what I wanted. And then it was kind of take a step back and think about what was it that worked and what wasn't, that didn't work. One thing that you can do is to start off small and just test and see what works for you. We were redesigning, websites for all of our properties, and it was a pretty big task. And I knew what I wanted the website to look like, but I had no idea, what kind of programming language that they should use to make it. What happened is that, they programmed the site in Joomla. And I don't know how familiar you are with, these kind of programming languages, but it's kind of like Windows and Apple in a way, I guess. More and more people are using WordPress, and had they used WordPress, things would have been easier for us afterwards. I think what I learned is you need to seek other people that maybe know a little bit more about that. Is there anyone, around you that knows something about it? Ask your friends on Facebook, like if there's something that you're not familiar with. Or, like buy a book about it and just read up. And you don't really need to know that much, but you just need enough to make sure that, when people give you something that, you're not left with, Kia versus a Mercedes, if you know what I mean. So that's kind of what we found out. Did that answer your question? Great.
And I would add, so use our freelancer base as a sounding board, too. A lot of clients will post a job, and when the bids come in from the freelancers, so they're submitting their bid with a proposal. And in that proposal, they could pose questions to you to get more specifics about the job. Based on the proposals that you can get back, you can then take a step back and say, oh, wow, I may need to rephrase this or be more specific. Or so in that case, then you can do that, or you can even create then another job post. And so definitely use them for their expertise. And then I'd also like to add, so I have a team out here in Southern California, and this is what we do. We're out here as a resource to business owners that want to learn how to work with online freelancers. And so we've all been on the platform, either on the client side hiring for a few years or on the freelancer side, and we're able to sit with you and help you really understand how to go about it the right way. Thanks. Any other questions? Oh.
Well, you mentioned that you were a freelancer and then you were hired by Elance. Do you find that are there freelancers that you've hired to come on as full-time staff?
Not yet, but I would like to hire someone. I see that's the yeah, but definitely people that I would like to bring on, and as projects grow, there's definitely an opportunity for that. But then other people too just want to be freelancers. Like they have no intention of being like employed by an organization. So but Melissa is a great example again. Like really talented people. Yeah.
Great. Well, Christian, so one more. Yeah.
It'd be great to hear from Melissa and get her perspective. I'm putting you on the spot, Melissa. I'm wondering if you could kind of just give us a quick soundbite on what your experience has been working as a freelancer.
I actually started freelancing with Elance in December, so it's only been a few months. And the best advice I can give is to not give up, because to get that first job is going to be really difficult because you don't have any ratings, so no one really trusts you. But after you get that, then it's easy to kind of move on from there. Do I like freelancing? Yeah, I like it because you get to it's really broad, so you can go into basically anything and learn all types of different things. You can take it on full-time, or I just do it part-time, but yeah.
So Melissa just recently graduated from USC, and while she's job searching, she's been bringing in income and building her resume on Elance. So I thought that was very smart. Yeah.
When you're working with teams across the globe, you're dealing with multiple time zones.
Yeah.
How do you find that you're able to disconnect, or do you find that you have to mitigate your time accordingly?
Some great questions, Sarah. So I was already accustomed to working in multiple time zones because a lot of our business, a lot of our investors are in Asia. So I was already accustomed to working between Japan and Asia, and then I'm originally from Europe. So when we talk to my family, then we're kind of in European time. And you really also need to sit down and kind of think about when am I most productive? When can I have a serious conversation, and when can I just have a follow-up conversation? When I was in Japan, I was working with our team here in the US. And you would kind of work through your work day, and then you're kind of eating dinner and you're going to bed, and I was putting my son to bed, and then suddenly somebody calls you, and it's morning time here in the US, and before you know it, you're kind of sucked into working during the US working hours. And then you wake up again the next day, and then you kind of have to take care of your business in the country you're in. So I would say that the lesson learned for me is just be super strict about your scheduling. And just be aware of the different time zones, and put that into your calendar. These are times that I can actually work with another time zone efficiently. And if you do that, I don't think that you'll have any problems. And I would also probably say that try to avoid working at night if you want to sleep, because your brain just starts revving up, and then you're into your next 12 hours of work.
So a lot of the really savvy startups that we work with, they use the time zone advantage. And once they have their go-to freelancers, so they will post a job and get the freelancer clear on expectations right before they go to sleep. And then they'll wake up to work being done in the morning. And they say it's the best thing, waking up, going to their inbox and seeing what was done. Yeah. I think that's amazing. Do you do that?
Absolutely. I don't know if it's always like that, but you definitely have the opportunity to do it. And again, it just comes down to clarity in your project. You're managing your expectations and their expectations. And if you do that, and if you're super good at doing that, then you can actually do that. then you can relax and you know that things are happening while you're not there.
Great. Well, Christian, thank you so much for
thank
sharing
you.
your advice and your experience with using freelancers. So you have your blog, The Maverick CEO, and you wrote an ebook that everyone here will get for free.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. And also, like if you want to catch up or if you have any questions, don't be afraid to come up here and ask.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.